Bhavik? Bhavik,
Yes, Vishnu.
are we good to go?
Sorry.
Are we good to start, or do you want to wait for some more time?
Uh, I think we should start now, Vishnu. It's okay.
Do you want to give a couple of more minutes? Anybody? Do you know anybody's coming in?
Well, I'm waiting for few participants right now, so let's wait for 2 more minutes and then we will start.
Oh, okay. All right. Let me know when you want to start off.
Okay.
I think we should start off. I think we have waited enough time. I think we should start off. Okay. All right. Anybody has any questions before we start for today? If anybody has any questions, they can raise their hand, and I'll answer those questions. I see one hand going up. Yes, Nikhil.
Vishnu, my question is SNS and the CloudWatch both are different concepts, right?
Yes. CloudWatch is to monitor. SNS
Okay.
is to send notifications when there is something wrong.
Okay. So we cannot configure the notifications in the CloudWatch, right?
In the CloudWatch, we have to select a topic from SNS.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You can configure CloudWatch
Mm-hmm.
to monitor which parameter at what level and what is the threshold and all of that. Then
Okay.
you can choose a notification topic to which CloudWatch can email you or SMS
Uh,
you.
so so
Yeah.
we can say like that CloudWatch is the parental to SNS, right?
CloudWatch is, uh, for now, you can take it as that, but
Mm-hmm.
these are independent components as such,
Okay.
right? CloudWatch can simply monitor it. For
So,
example,
in case if I can configure any sort of alert in the CloudWatch, and I want to set up a notification for that, so I cannot take it directly from the CloudWatch. I need to set up a new configuration in the SNS, right?
to send a notification, you need
Mm-hmm.
SNS topic. Without SNS, CloudWatch cannot send an email,
Okay.
right?
Good.
But
Good.
CloudWatch can do lot many things without SNS as well. Say, for example, it can trigger auto scaling.
Okay.
Just if you want to work with just with auto scaling, you don't
Mm-hmm.
need SNS for that.
Okay.
Okay.
So we can say like that SNS is having a dependency of CloudWatch, but CloudWatch is not having any sort of dependency about near about SNS, right?
Nothing has any dependency on each other. SNS also can work individually,
Okay.
right? You can from the system also send emails to people through SNS notifications. One of the mechanism to send messages is through CloudWatch. Okay, everything is an independent component. And anybody else has any questions? I can take this. Okay, I think we'll start off. Let's start off for today. So let's log into AWS console first. All right, so this is my AWS console. Somebody has a message for me, so let's look at the message. Okay, that's fine. All right. So today we are going to look at one of the important topic in AWS that is called as IAM, Identity Access Management. Till now we have looked at EC2. Then we have in EC2 we looked at auto scaling, elastic load balancers, volumes, all of this stuff. Right. Today we are going to look at EC2, and we have also looked at CloudWatch and SNS. Right. We have also looked at CloudWatch, which can monitor your infrastructure, and CloudWatch couples well with auto scaling to scale machines up or to scale machines down, depending on the threshold that you give. Auto scaling can automatically increase the count of machines or decrease the count of machines. Auto scaling can do that. Okay, we have looked at that, and we have also looked at elastic load balancer. Then we looked at SNS as well. Then we have also looked at another important thing that is for billing alarms. Right? If you guys have started using AWS account, I would highly recommend you to set up billing alarms, right? Which will really help you. Say come the month end, Amazon may suddenly deduct say $20, $30 from your account, right? If you want to avoid those kind of things, configure your billing alarms so that whenever your billing crosses the threshold, at least you will be notified saying that your billing is going above say whatever the threshold is. Say for example, you guys may have $5 as the limit. So whenever your CloudWatch usage, whenever your billing usage goes above 5%, CloudWatch can at least let you know that your billing usage is going up, and then probably you can log into your AWS account and check and see what is causing the billing to go high, right? So I would highly recommend you guys to configure billing alarms. If you guys don't know about how to configure the billing alarms, in the last class I have shown you, and I think that the video is also there on the tax site. Probably you guys should go there and have a look at how to set up billing alarms. All right. I hope you guys can do that. So without going too much into that, so let's go into something called as identity access management. All right. So identity access management, AWS, IAM, right? When I type in identity access management, you get to this page. This is a product page. So for any of the product that we are talking about, let it be EC2, let it be CloudWatch, let it be SNS, any topic, just go to Google and give the product name, you'll get to a very good page from Amazon which has all the details about their product, right? I would highly recommend you guys to read through these product pages. This has a lot of information, and FAQs will really help you understand what we are doing here, right? Read through the FAQs, read through the product pages. Then you don't need any other documentation. This should be good enough for you, right? You don't need to follow any books or any PDF. Just read through the things here and follow the FAQs. If you're going for certification, you should be good with this. Okay. All right. So let's talk about IAM, right? So IAM is basically used to create users in AWS, right? So let's see how it works. Say you're working for an organization, right? So if you guys are working for an organization, initially somebody will create an AWS account like what we have signed up. After they sign up for the AWS account, if you're working for an organization, you will not be the only one who's going to access an AWS account. There could be multiple people in your organization who could be accessing the AWS account. Like say probably you have your database administrators, then probably you have your monitoring team, then you have developers. Everybody needs access to AWS console, right? So with IAM, what we can do is we can create those users, and we can create groups as well, and then we can attach policies to those users and groups so that we can restrict the access based on the say role or title or whatever it is, whatever is your criteria for giving access, we can restrict with that. Okay, let's look at how it works today. Right, if you read through the product page, it talks about all of the stuff here. Right, the main important function is fine-grained access control to AWS resources, right? So here what you can do is, say for example, I have say development EC2 instances and QA EC2 instances. I don't want any of my development team to access my to have any AWS access on dev QA machines. I can do that. I can restrict access to a very granular level, right? I can define what should be allowed and what should not be allowed. It is so minute. You can restrict access to each and individual resource also, right? So once you start using it, you'll feel the benefit of it, right? Say for example, if your organization has already say Active Directory set up, if you are working for a company, most of the companies have Active Directory setup, right? So with Active Directory setup, this AWS IAM can integrate, right? You can also go for multi-factor authentication, which we'll try to look at it today. Then you can go through this page again here. It has more details about multi-factor authentication, manage user credentials, and all of this stuff, right? So especially with IAM costs you nothing, right? IAM costs you nothing. You'll be charged only for use of other resources, other AWS services by your users, right? You can create users, you can set policies. You're actually not using any resource. So play around with IAM, right? All right. So when you look at your AWS console, your IAM is right here under security and identity. Under security and identity, you have this IAM, identity access management. Click on that. It'll open up this page, right? And right. So when you first log in, you look at this, right? Hold on for a second. Let me check if I've logged into the correct account. Okay, that looks fine. Okay, let's go ahead. Right, when you first log in, you look at this screen, right? When you create users, for example, it basically says the number of users you have, the number of groups you have, the number of policies you have defined, the roles, the identity provides, all of the summaries right here, right? So the first thing that you want to do is you want to create a user, right? first thing what we'll do is we'll create a user and then we'll try to log in with that user and see how the console looks. Right now, what we have been doing is we have been logging as admins, right? We have been using our email ID, right? So the best practice is always to delete your root access keys. We'll look at that, okay, and create individual user IDs. So the best practice always says that you should never log in with your email ID. Email ID is the account on through which you have complete access to your AWS resources. So to not mess around with AWS account, the best practice is to never log in with your email account. Always create a user for yourself and log in through that account, right? So let's look at that. The first thing that we are going to do is we are going to create a user in AWS, right? So I'll click on this users, right? Then I don't have anything here right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on create users, right? I'm going to click on create users. Then I'm going to specify the username that I want to create. For example, I want to create a user by name user1, right? I want to create a user by name of user1. And here you have an important thing here. It says generate an access key for each user. Okay, at a time you can create 5 users. Again, if you want to create more users, you can create it. But from the GUI, at a time you can create 5 users, and it has this important checkbox here, right? It says generate an access key for each user. So if you are going to generate an access key, if I'm going to click on create, now I'm creating a user, and I'm also generating an access key, right? Now if I'm going to click on create, the next screen it shows you is it says your one user has been created successfully, and this is very important. This is the last time the user security credentials will be available for download. And if I click on this, it will give me a access key and a secret it will give me an access key ID and a secret access key, right? So if you try to understand what these are, right? So if I open a notepad and just paste it here, so these things are say for example, if you're trying to access AWS from an application, say for example you have developed a Java application, right? You have developed a Java application which does something on AWS, like which creates instances automatically, which creates S3 buckets automatically, which does a lot of stuff, right? So how do you grant access to that Java application to access AWS console, right? So there you cannot, probably you have to put in your username and password, right? You have to put in your username and password in the Java application. If that Java application that you develop, if it has to interact with AWS, it needs an authentication. Without authentication, AWS will not allow access. So if you need to have access, the only way that you can do is you can punch in your username and password. But if you're going to punch in your username and password, if you're going to type in your username and password, that is not safe. Anybody who can get to the code of it, they can easily know what is your username and password, right? So that is not a good practice. So what you're going to do is you're going to use this access key and secret access key, right? Instead of the username and password, you're going to use this encrypted username and encrypted password. Okay, and whenever you are going to create a user, right, secret access key will be shown to you only once, right? If I don't copy it now, and later on if I want the secret access key, I'll not be able to get it. Okay, that's the reason it clearly says you this is the last time these user credentials will be available for download. After this, if I don't download it now, after that if I want these credentials, I'm not going to get back. We'll look at that in detail in some time. Hold on. So now I have created a user. Okay, now I have created a user and I also copied the credentials. Now I click on cloud, and now I see that I have one user created, right? I have one user created, right? So let's try logging in with this user. So how do I log in with this user? Can I use this account to log in with this user? Now I want to log in as user 1. Right, now I want to log in with this user 1. right? So if you want to log in as user 1, you should not see this page. Actually, when you type in, you get to this page, right? When you get to you get to this page to log in, but it says email or mobile number. It doesn't ask you for your username. What it is asking you is email or mobile number, and then you have to specify if you are a new user or a returning user. But now what I have created is this user 1. How do I log in with this user ID? There's no way that you can log in from this link to your AWS account with this username. So how do you go about it is you click on your dashboard, then you have this link, HTTPS link. You look at this, this is the HTTPS link. It basically is your HTTPS:// then your AWS account ID, then signin.aws. This goes on, right? Say I don't want to show my account number to everyone, right? This account number I want to keep it secret. Then what I can do is I can click on customize, and even if I have to give someone this account number, this link, it's going to be very difficult to remember, right? So what I can do is I can change that. I can change that to, say for example, I'm changing it to Collabra. Okay, if I do that, if I say yes, create, Collabra is already existing. So this, if I probably I'll say Collabra 123. Right, if I do this, now if you look at it, the link is collabra123.signin.aws.amazon.com. Right, instead of your account number .signin.aws.amazon.com, you have a much easier link. So to log in to this account, I have to use this link. So I'm going to use that link now. Now if I try to log in, I'm getting this account number here, right? This account ID that I have created. Now it asks me for a username and password. And till now what we have done is we have just created a user, but we haven't assigned a password to the user. I've just created a user, but I haven't assigned any password to the user. So the next thing that I have to do is if the user has to log in, if this user has to log in, I have to assign this user a password. Without that, this user will not be able to log in. Okay, so how do you do that? Just click on this account that you have created, go into user actions, click on manage password. Click on manage password, then it will give you a message whether you want to auto generate a password or you want to create a password. You want to assign a password or you want it to automatically generate a password, right? So if you click apply, it's going to automatically generate a password for you. This is the automatically generate password, but this is very difficult for me to remember, so I'll close this. Again, I'll come here, click on manage password. I'll say remove existing password, right? Or I'll say replace existing password with new custom password. I'm going to set my own password, which will be easy for me to remember. Right? This will be easy for me to remember. Otherwise, that randomly generated password is very difficult for me to remember. So I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use this one. Okay. So let's apply. And if I want this user to reset his password as soon as he logs in, I have to click this. Right? If I do this, whenever this user logs in, he has to reset his password first. Okay. I don't want to do that for now. I'll just click on apply. Right. So now it clearly says that user is this, and this user is not part of any group, so it says 0. And password, you'll see a tick there. That means the password has been set for this user. Okay. And it also says password lost used, because till now we haven't logged into this machine yet. That's the reason it says this password hasn't been used yet. And it also has some active keys. Keys are nothing but the keys that we have copied, right? These are the access keys that are generated when a user is created. And when was this user created? Okay. So now let's try to log in with user 1. User 1, and the password that I set. Right now I'm able to log into my AWS console. Right? You look at it, now there is some differences here. It clearly says user1 at Collabra123. Right? It's clearly saying the username that I used and the account name. Right? Now if I look at my root, which is in the other browser, it simply says the name that I used to create this account. Okay, so now can I do everything here with the new account? Let's check that out. Right, when I click on EC2, it says you're not authorized to describe a running instance. Right, basically it's not showing me anything. Right, because by default when you create a AWS account, if you don't attach a policy to the account, by default everything is denied. So user doesn't have any access to anything right now. Right now this user doesn't have access to anything. But when you create account, by default everything is denied, no access at all. All you can do is just log in and see if it is working. So that is the state which it is. Okay, so what do we want to do? We want to give some access to this user, right? User without access is of no use, right? We want to give some access to this user. How do we go about it? Right, so for that what you have to do is you have to click on user account or even if you click this user, right, this is your users, right? So if I go back into my users, if I click users, it will show me some details like ARN, right? So this is very important. This is called as Amazon resource name. Every resource that you create will have a unique name, right? ARN is very important. Every resource that you create in AWS will have a unique name. It's like ARN colon AWS, then colon service name, then your account number, then what type of resource it is. It is user type of resource, and the resource name is user1. If you want to know more about ARNs, just type in here. This has a specific format. ARN names have a specific format. It is simply like this, right? ARN colon partition colon service colon region colon account ID resource type colon resource or slash resource. It's both the same. So this has a pattern, right? Right now the ARN that we are looking at was ARN colon AWS, right? ARN colon AWS colon IAM, then so on and so forth. And it also says has password. Yes, it has password. How many groups is this user part of? Right now nothing. And path is ignore that. Then when was this created? It was created at whatever the time it is showing, right? Then if I want to make this user part of the groups, you can click here. We'll talk about it in a moment. Then if you look at it, permissions, in that you have something called as policies, right? If you want to attach a policy, without the policy the user has no access. So if you want to, if the user has to do anything with your AWS console, you have to attach a policy. Only then the user can do something, otherwise nothing. This user will not be able to do anything at all. So what we do is we click on attach policy. Click on attach policy, then it shows you policies, right? Then it shows you policies. Right now what we have is all the policies here, right? So you can also write your own policies. If you look at it, these are the currently policies written by AWS. There is a filter here. If you click on this filter, it will show you what type of policies that you want to look at. You want to look at AWS managed policies, which are the policies generated by AWS, or you want to look at your own custom policies. We'll see how to, I'll just show you how to write a policy as well. If you write a policy, the policy will be displayed here, right? You have all of this information here. For example, AWS managed policy. Okay, for the user that we have created, if you want to give administrator access, just click on this, click on attach policy, and the user will have admin access, right? but I don't want to give admin access to the user, right? I want to give some other access. For example, only on EC2 I want to give the user admin access, only on EC2, nothing else. Then there will be some rule defined here like that. If you scroll through all the way down, keep expanding if I can. Okay, there are about some 167 rules there, 167 defined rules or policies, right? You can choose the policy that you want to apply. For example, I can simply search, right? If I want to give this user full rights on all, when I look at my AWS console, I look at so many resources, right? When I look at my AWS console, I look at everything here. I want a user to have admin privileges only on this one, only on EC2. Then I can probably choose this EC2 full access. Or if I want only read-only access on EC2, I can choose that. But for now, what we'll do for this user is we'll give read-only access on the complete AWS account. So for that, what we can do is read-only. Right, there is a read-only access. There is a read-only access. So if I check this, click on attach policy. Right now, this user has been allocated a read-only policy. So let's try to log in back with this user ID, or let's try to refresh it. Right now, if I look now, the screen has changed. If you guys have noticed, now the screen has changed. Now it no longer says unable to describe. Now it doesn't say that. Now it is actually showing what you have. It is actually showing what you already have. Right? It is not as if it is not showing you anything. Now it is at least showing you what you have already. So this is what is read-only access is. Right now, what I've created is read-only access. Now let's try to launch an instance with this user ID. Right? We know that this user has read-only access. So what we're going to do is we're going to launch Amazon Linux AMI, and I'm going to simply choose or leave everything default for now. Let's see what error it fails with. I'm going to launch, then I click launch. I have a default key here. I'm going to choose that as it is. Now if you look at it, you are not authorized to perform this operation. Right? It says you cannot create a security group. So it failed there. So the complete operation failed. Right? Because this user, we know that this user has only read-only access. We haven't given any other access to this user till now. Okay. So if I come back to my AWS console. So what is this read-only policy? We said we have attached a policy, but what does the policy consist of? Right? What do you mean by a policy at all? If you look at the show policy, it will show you. Right? Basically, a policy has an action block. Right? So basically, a policy is like this: a version, a statement. Right? Under the statement, you have actions. Action is what all actions you want to allow or deny the user, then effect, then resource, right? So effect is either allow or deny. Action is what all actions are allowed, what all actions you want to allow or deny. Then there is resource. Resource means on which AWS resource you want to say. I want to allow only EC2. I want to give full access on EC2. Then probably I'll have something here. Then I'll have something for resource. Right? So depending on your policy, depending on your requirement, you can modify the policy. This is a AWS default policy. So right now what we are looking at is this. Okay. If I don't want this policy any longer with this user, I can simply click on detach policy, and then that policy will be detached from the user. We don't want to do that. What else you can do is you can click on simulate policy. Right? If I click on simulate policy, it basically shows you the policy. Right now it says user 1 has read-only access. Now instead of trying it from here and failing, as soon as I create a policy, I can simulate the policy, because for now policy might look very easy, but as and when you create some complicated policies, it gets very tough. It gets very difficult to understand as to what exactly the policy is doing. Then the policy simulator will really help you, right? So what this does is it can help you test. It can help you test how your policy is behaving. And this is the current policy what we have, right? Now if I say select a service, for example, till now what we have been looking at is EC2, right? So let's take EC2 in here. I can't seem to find EC2. Hold on. There should be elastic computing. Okay. EC2, right? There should be EC2, right? So I can select this. Now I've selected EC2. Now what do I want to simulate? I want to say, for example, only read, right? I want to simulate read. Read, most of the times it starts with get, right? Or get or describe. So for example, describe, I'll say describe images. I also want to describe images and describe instances. That means show the details of the instances and show the details of the show the details of Amazon machine images, right? AMIs. If I do that, can I look at both of these things? I'm just testing. Now if I click on run simulation, with this policy it says allowed, right? With the current policy it is allowed, right? So for example, let's select one more action like delete volume. Will I be able to delete the volume with the read-only policy? If I say run simulation, it says with the read-only policy you cannot delete the volume. With this current policy, whatever you have, you cannot delete the volume, but you can see, right? We are simulating. I hope you guys are getting it, right? We're not actually doing it, but we are just simulating. The same thing is going to happen if I have a volume. If I have a volume in this account, and if I try to delete it, it's going to fail. Instead of me failing there when I give it to the user, if I'm admin, better I check out how my policy is working in the simulator. Okay. Okay, this policy has all of this. So let's make it let's change it, right? Let's change it a bit. Like say EC2 describe is there, right? So I want to remove this. I want to remove this. I said I have removed EC2 describe. Now I'll click on apply, right? So now I've clicked on apply. Now if I run simulation, you see now nothing on EC2 is also allowed. I've taken a custom policy of read only. Now I'm making some changes to it. Like I've decided not to give any permissions on EC2. That's the reason. Now even these actions are denied. Okay. If anybody has any questions, they can raise their hand and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. So depending on what you want to simulate, depending on what resource and what action, right? You can run all of the simulations that you want. Okay. All right, so let's go back. Let's come back here. And then you have something called as inline policies, which we're going to talk about in a moment, right? We'll or else we'll just talk about it right now, right? So right now what we have given is a read-only access, right? So if I click here, right? Now I can write some policy only for the user, right? So what I'm looking at was I have a user and I want to quickly change something. By default, what I have is a read-only access. Read-only access is this read-only access allows this user to look at the instances also, right? But I want read-only access, but no access on EC2, right? So what I can do is I can modify this on the fly using something called as inline policies. Now if I click at it, click on this. I'll click here. Then it will ask you whether you want to write your own policy or you want to use something called as policy generator. If you want to write, if you know how to write a policy, you can click on custom policy and you can type in your policy in the format of JSON. Right? If you can't write your policy, the easier way is click on inline policies, click here, click on policy generator. Right? Policy generator will make life very easy. Click on it, select, and now it will ask you what action, right? Allow or deny. Say I want to deny. So on which service you want to deny? I have all these services. Say for example, I want to deny for EC2, right? What actions on EC2? Deny what? It is asking you deny what. Say for example, I will say I don't want this user to describe EC2 instances, right? I don't want this user to describe means list, right? I don't want this user to describe instances. Okay, select this, right? And again, you can select what is the exact resource, right? Say I have 10 instances and I don't want to show one of those instances for this user. I can paste that resources ARN here. As I said, every AWS resource will have a unique ARN. You can paste that here, right? So for example, I have in this EC2 console, I can show you my AWS. For example, I don't have, but if I have say 3-4 machines here under running instances, and I don't want this user to see one of those instances, I can definitely give its ARN here. Okay, probably we'll look at it later on, but for now what we'll say is star. Star means this user should not be allowed any access for all the resources, for all the EC2 resources, right? I have to click on add statement. So this is what you're doing. That's what it says. Click on next step. Now it says this is what you're going to do, right? We have a version, statement, SID is just a number. The most important things are these three components, right? Effect, action, resource. So I'll say apply policy, right? Now I have applied this policy for this user. If you look at it, in the manage policy sections, I have given the user a read-only access. In the inline policies, again from the read-only access, I have denied something. So now if I go back to this console, now if I do a refresh here, if you look at it, it says you are not authorized to describe the running instances because I've denied the user. Deny always overrides allow. When I specifically deny something, it's denied, because here if you have noticed it carefully, I have allowed in this policy I have allowed this user to describe instances, right? EC2 : describe. I have allowed it, but in this policy, the policy later on, the policy I created after that, if I click on show policy, I have specifically denied this EC2 describe instances. I have denied it. That's the reason this is taking a precedence. Always deny takes a precedence over allow, right? So this is how you create policies and attach a policy and attach an inline policy, right? Then you have something called as access keys. Let's look at access keys now. We have access keys here. To show this access key, I have to launch a EC2 instance. So let's launch a EC2 instance. Launcher. Somebody has raised a hand. Yeah, Nikhil.
Vishnu, what is the difference between the inline attach policy and the attach policy?
What is the difference between
both of them?
inline policies and these normal policies, right? Attached
Yeah.
policy. Okay, these policies are you're going to create here in policies, right? Inline policies are like a quick something, right? Inline policies, you want to make a quick change to a existing policy, you can do that.
Okay, so you mean to say that once we created a policy for any particular user, and in case in the future if I need to amend those policies, so I can use the inline policies, right?
Yes, if you want to make say small tweaks here and there, then
Mhm.
normally you go for inline policies,
Okay.
right? So whatever policies that I create here in policies will be here. But if you want to make small tweaks, not every user, see, there are some
So,
special requirements coming up, right? So you want to tweak it a bit, then you use these inline policies.
uh, Vishnu, can we put some this one particular time frame on the inline policies as well? Let's say
You
that
can,
if I need for a 1 week or a 2 week,
you can, you can.
can you please show me how to do that?
That will be okay. Let's try it. Or else, oh, you have to know that attribute, right? So I can add a condition, right? So I will have to know the exact thing that you're going to put it, right? So a condition date equals, right? I can say date equals AWS current time and then which date. If you're going to put that, it's going to work. So you can add conditions like ARN equals date. There are so many conditions. If I want to restrict access from the coming port, right? If I say IP address something like source IP, I want to allow only from this IP. Say for example, this is not going to work because this is a private IP address, right? I'm just showing you something. If I say deny something like anything that just for an example I'm showing you. So DynamoDB, I've selected something, all actions, right? All DynamoDB star. If I say add statement, now if I say next step, oops, no, I do not think I have added the condition. So let's quickly do it again. So policy generator, select, say deny. What do you want to deny? Say for example, I don't want to give this user on EC2 all actions on all AWS resources, right? I want to add a condition saying that the source IP, I want to give a condition on IP address whenever this user is coming from uh, source IP, the add condition, right? Now if I say add statement, I'll remove the previous statement. That will make it easier. So next step. Now if you look at it, action, effect, resource, and a condition. Okay. In the same way, you can have your time here. You just need to know what the value that you should put, but you can have a condition for time as well, right? So all those conditions, you go through your policy generator a couple of times, you'll understand what all you can have on restricted. Okay.
So Vishnu, do we have the concrete any documentation on the conditions as well? That what condition do what?
Or there is a lot of documentation on AWS IAM.
Okay.
And the page that I have shown you, just go to that page. I think there is a big PDF on so many conditions out there.
Okay.
Actually, you don't remember those on top of your head, but say whenever you need it, you refer to that PDF and get your job done. Okay.
So is there any sort of some specific condition that is used on the general basis?
Nothing as such. It varies from condition to condition, person to person, organization to organization, nothing like that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so let's go forward. So I wanted to show you this access keys. I wanted to show you this how these access keys work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new machine. I'm going to create a new machine. Select an AMI, then configure instance details, will leave everything default as such. Next, add storage. Next, tag instances. Configure security group. I'm going with the default security group for now. Click on review and launch. Click on launch. I don't have this key pair, so let's create a new key pair. Name the key pair as download key pair. Does download the file. And now it has launched a EC2 instance for me. I have this partition. I have this partition, so I'm going to open that app, and I'm going to convert the key that I've downloaded. And I'm converting my key. I have already explained this to you guys. If you're finding it difficult to follow me, I would highly recommend you guys to go through the video that we have talked about. Right. So what I'll do is I'll click on. Oops. Come on. One step. Sorry about that. Load private key. We have it on downloads. All files. Typing that. Select that. Then we have to click on save private key. Save. I'm going to save that on the desktop. I'm going to save that as lab. Right, I've saved this file. Now I'm going to use my putty to connect to it. So I've launched one instance, isn't it? Launched one instance. This is the IP address of it. I'm going to keep the IP address. I'm going to go to SSH. I'm going to select auth. I'm going to browse for my key. And I'm going to click open. Right? Now if I want to log in, EC2-user, you can log in. Now if you guys noticed it, I've launched a Amazon Linux AMI, right? With Amazon Linux AMI, if I'm going to select this, it clearly shows you what all you're going to get in Amazon Linux AMI. If you have noticed this, it says the default AMI includes, the default image includes AWS command line tools. So what does that mean is, there are tools to access your AWS, not only from the GUI, but also from command line. On the other day, I have explained it to you guys, right? There are multiple ways to access AWS resources. One is through this command line, one is through this GUI interface, another one is through command line, and the another one is through your programming languages, your APIs. AWS has a lot of APIs, and they have development kits for Java, .NET, Python, PHP, all of these programming languages. So if you are well versed with one of those programming language, You can do what all we are doing from here from a program as well, right? But for that to interact, it needs a access key and secret access key, right? Even for the command line, if you want to access AWS resources, you need those keys. So let's look at how to configure it, right? Right now what we have is this keys, right? Right now what we have done is we have created a user and we have the keys for this user. So let's use those keys. For now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply remove this policy so that we can see something. I can remove the inline policy. Right now what this user has is the read-only policy, right? So from here, now we want to connect to my AWS instance, connect to my AWS service, right? So for that, what I have to do is I have to click on AWS configure, right? When I type in AWS configure, it will ask you for the access key ID, right? If you remember, I have copied these things when I created the user. So I have to enter this access key ID. I have to enter the access key ID first. Then it will ask you for the secret access key, right? This is my secret access key. I'm going to enter that, right? Then it's going to ask you for the default region from the command line. You have to specify to which region you are going to connect to. I'm going to connect to something called as US East -1. US East -1 is nothing but I'm connecting to North Virginia. If you want to, there is AWS documentation and you can check out for the region names, right? So I'm going to press enter. Default output format none. I just wanted text format, so I've gone for none, right? Now what I've done is I've typed in AWS configured and I have entered these access key and secret access key, right? So now if I'm trying to access the AWS resources, it is as good as I'm trying to do from this console. I'm trying to access the resources from this user1 ID, because these credentials what we are using now belong to this user, right? These credentials were created for this user, right? So whenever I interact with AWS using those credentials, it is as good as this user is accessing it. Okay, so what else you can do? Say AWS, you press enter, it will show you how to run this. Press AWS EC2, and if I type something like this, some junk like that, it will basically show you all the available options, right? I want to do AWS EC2. Say for example, I want to see what all regions I have, right? If I do that, it will show me basically. It says I have all of the regions. It is describing the regions. So that what does that mean is it is listing the regions, right? In a similar way, you can do AWS EC2 describe instances. If you want to create an instance, you can create from here, right? You can definitely create an instance from here. You can also list AMIs. All of these things you can do. If I say AWS EC2 describe instances, it's going to show me, right? It's going to show me what all the instances I have. Right now what it says is I have one instance, right? I have one instance. The monitoring state is disabled, and the current IP address is this, right? If you look at it, it says 52.23.176.62, right? Which is nothing but this one. This instance, right? Look at 52.23.176.62. So with this, now what all I'm doing is from this machine is as good as I'm logging in with the username user1, right? I did not put my username and password. All I did was I used my credentials, secret access key, and the access key, right? So tomorrow if you write an application which does something with your AWS, you have to use these keys. That is a best practice, right? So you have to use those keys. Because you cannot enter your username and password, so you'll have to enter your access key and secret access key. Okay. All right. So so that's the reason you take a note of these access keys, right? So let's go forward with this. So in the security credentials, if you look at it, right, you have your access keys, right? You can at any given point of time. So normally what happens in an account, say not normally what happens is, if you're working for organizations, so every 30 days or every 60 days or every 90 days, you'll be asked to change your password, right? If you're logging through your Windows account, every 90 days or 180 days, depending on your organization policy, there will be a message saying that you have to change your password, or your password is going to expire in so and so days, right? In a similar way, these security credentials also, you have to keep rotating them. Say now I have generated these credentials. If I use these credentials forever, if somebody loses these credentials, I'm at risk, right? So just how you change your password regularly, you also have to rotate your keys, right? It also says here, best practice recommend frequent key rotation, right? So say for example, if you want to have a new keys, so what you're going to do is you're going to click on create access keys, right? Then it's going to create a new pair of access keys for you. I'll just click on show access keys for now. So what we'll do is we'll copy this username and access key and secret access key. So these are the new keys for the user. Okay. So I'll say close. I'll say close again. So right now what I have is two keys. One account, but two keys. Right. So I can access my account with any of these keys for now. So what AWS basically does is, say if you have a complex application and you exactly don't know where all you have put in your keys, just because you have changed your keys, it doesn't mean that your AWS account should break, right? So for that reason, at any given point of time, so that you identify all the places where your keys are, and you change all of these keys, at any given point of time, you will have two access keys. You can at the max have two access keys, and once you think that you have done all the changes, right, you can delete it. But just to test it, you can make it as make inactive, right? Now if I say deactivate, now this is inactive. Now I have new access keys, right? Now if I, now probably I'll be able to do it. Now if I look at it, right? Now I've executed the same command, right? Just because I made this access keys inactive, this is not working anymore. But I don't, just imagine that I don't know where all these access keys have been put in, and I don't want my application to stop working. So what I can do simply to quickly correct this problem is click on make active, right? Activate. So my keys are active again. Now I can see it is working fine. Now later on probably I'll take some time, identify where all the keys are that have to be changed. Then I'll make inactive, right? Then I can also delete it. So at any given point of time, the best practice is you should have only one keys. But for a temporary switch over, you can have two keys. Right now, if I want to log in, it's not going to allow me. So what I have to do again is try AWS configure again. I can do with AWS configure, or there is a folder by name ls-la. If I say AWS, there is a folder here. So if I do cd.aws, there is a folder here. There are a couple of files here. Right? Config will basically have the region name and the default output. If I look at my credentials, credentials have your access key and secret access key. Now if I change VI credentials, now if I put in my new keys, this should work fine. Delete this. right? Now if I save this, now I've saved it. Now I put in the new case. Now if I do AWS is to describe instances, now again I'm working. So now I'm accessing with my new access keys. So now I have changed the access keys. So there is a good practice. You should always keep changing your access keys. Like you keep changing your password, it is also a good thing to keep changing your access keys. Okay. Okay, let's go forward. Access key is one. Then if you want to change the password, you can click on manage password. Again, you can change the password like we did earlier. Other than that, what you can do is you can configure something called as MFA device. Have you guys seen people using tokens to log in? Right, people have those RSA tokens to log in. If you want your AWS account also to have AWS tokens, you can have it. Right? If you want your AWS accounts to have RSA tokens, you can have it. All you have to do is click on your manage MFA device, and based on the type of device that you have, right? If you have that physical RSA token, you can go for a hardware MFA device. Click on next step, then you enter the serial number of your MFA device, and then you enter your 2 authentication codes, right? That number keeps changing every 60 seconds or something like that. There's a random number that will be coming up on the RSA console. You can change the password. You can give in those authentication codes, and from then on, if I attach an MFA device to a user, if you guys have noticed it here, if I log out from here, right? So if I try to sign into the console again, it has something called as I have an MFA token. If I click this, it will ask you for a MFA token. If I have assigned a MFA token to the user, they will have to enter the MFA token to login. Otherwise, it's not going to work. MFA token is nothing but, maybe I don't know if you guys have ever noticed. These tokens like this, small devices like this, where this number keeps changing every 45 seconds or 60 seconds, I guess. Right? So once this number changes, you have to enter that number along with username and password to log in. Otherwise, you will not be able to log in. If you want to have something like that, you can definitely do that by associating keys. Okay. Sorry, by associating MFA devices. Sign-in certificates, we're not going to look at it, then this is not required. All right. So that brings us to the end of the users. Now let's look at groups. Okay. All right. Say if I have hundreds of users in my account, right? I have hundreds of developers in my account. So managing each individual user account with each individual policies and all of this stuff is going to be very, very difficult for me to do it. So what I'll do is I'll combine multiple users into groups, right? Say for example, I can create a group, right? Probably I'll say admins group. I'll create an admins group. If I want to attach a policy to the admins group, I can attach a policy, or I can leave that for now. That's the next step. I haven't attached any policies. Click on create group. Now I have a admins group. Now if I click on it, it says currently no users are added. So what we'll do is we'll quickly add some users. I'll say admin 1, admin 2. I'm adding some random users. Admin 3, right? I'm creating some random users, and I'm also generating some access key for these users. So I'll click on create. I don't need these access keys, but I'm just copying just in case we might need it. Because after that, if you need it, you're not going to get it. So make sure you save these keys. Somebody has raised a hand, so let's take a question. Yeah, Nikhil.
Krishna, as you shown us the MFA devices, right?
Yeah.
So my question is that any sort of MFA device is supportable with this one.
Yes.
So do we have any particular configuration files to save on of the MFA files, MFA server or the MFA configuration file on this AWS as well?
There's nothing. All you have to enter is the MFA device number, then that's it.
So, but how the MFA device going to sync with the AWS?
That
It's
is
just
based on that is based on the serial number of the MFA device.
okay.
Okay. That is based on the serial number of the MFA device.
Got your point.
Okay. Okay, so I'm creating some 3 users for admin 1, admin 2, admin 3. So I'm going to click on download credentials. So what's going to happen is it's going to download a file, and it's going to download a file. We're going to click on close. So now I have 3 users, 3 admin users, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to click on groups. Now we have a admins group. Let's attach a couple of users from admins to this group. Admin 1, admin 2. I'll make admin 1 and admin 2 part of this group. Before that, let me take the question from Rupesh. Yeah, Rupesh.
Hello.
Yeah, Rupesh.
Yeah, sir. I wanted to ask you about MFA again.
Okay.
As I understood, I think MFA device is like a DS, digital signature certificate, right? Which is used in Maha
MFA
tendering.
device is not digital signature certificate. No, it's not that.
No,
It's
no,
a RSA.
like
It's a
type of
RSA
that
algorithm device.
Okay, RSA. Because I
RSA
don't have
token.
an idea about RSA.
RSA token is see, it basically generates a number, a six-digit number that keeps changing every 60 seconds, right? So if you want to, there is an algorithm for it. I can't explain the RSA algorithm is tough.
Okay.
So what happens is it keeps generating every 60 seconds a new number. So if you associate that RSA with a user login, so that
Okay.
you have to, along with the username and password, you also have to enter the number that is being displayed on the device.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All you have to do is you have to just take the number and see there is a number here, right? If you look at this token, there's a number here, right? This
Yeah.
number will not be there after 60 seconds. There will be another number
Okay.
generated, right?
Okay. Randomly.
Randomly. I mean, it's not random. It's based on that RSA algorithm.
Okay.
It's not random. For us, it may look random, but there is a logic behind it.
Okay.
And the logic is understood by this device and as well as your login page.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, Nikhil. Nikhil, do you have a question? You have raised your hand.
No, actually, I was going to explain a little about RSA. In fact, if you want, I can.
You're done? You're fine?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. If
Okay.
you tell you
Sorry.
guys about this one, RSA.
Or sorry?
Or if you want, I can explain the other people about the RSA. If you someone of are not aware about this.
I think we will run short of time if we start that.
Okay.
No problem. I think if somebody is interested, probably you can always read it over Google, right? Or else you can email me. Probably I'll try to explain it again.
Sure.
Okay. So what we did was we created a couple of users. Now I'm assigning these 2 users to this admins group, right? I have a group by name admins, and I'm adding these 2 users to this admin group. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on add users, right? So what I did, I created a group by name admins, and I've added these 2 users to this group. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach a policy to the group. Say I'm going to give administrator access for these 2 for that group, and say attach policy, right? Now the policy that I have for this users is admin. Now let's assign some password, because we haven't assigned yet any password to these users, right? So these users will not be able to log in. If I want these users to log in, I have to attach a password. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down here, click on manage password, assign a password, assign a password, click on apply, right? So I've clicked, I've created a user, I've made the user part of a group, and then I've set the password. Right now, what we can do is we can log in as this user, admin1 user. Right, so let's see how it works. I want to log in as admin1, and I want to use the password to log in. I don't have MFA token, so I will not check that box. Then I'll click on sign in. Right now, I've signed in. Now I should have admin access on this account because the policy that is attached to this admin1, right? The policy is coming from the group. Now it says, if I look at policies, it says group policies. Now this policy is coming from the group, right? So with this group policy, I should be able to do anything. I should be, we'll just look an example of creating a volume because this is easy. There's not many steps here. I'll simply show you how to create a volume. Create a volume, and I'm going to create, say, 1 GB volume. Create. I'm able to create a volume because I have admin access. I can do anything with this account now. Okay. All right. So let's log out because I have given admin privileges to the group. So that's the reason this user has got the admin privileges. All right. So now let's log in as admin3. We want to log in as admin3? I don't think so. No, we will not log in as admin3. So if I want to add this admin3 user to the group, I can click on this add user to the group, select the group to which you want to add it, click on add group. Now if I look at my groups, under admins I have 3 users. That's what it says. If I click on users also, it says these admins are part of one group. Okay. With the groups, all the things that you can do is you can add users to the group and as well as attach a policy. So at a group level, if I say allow, and if at a user level, if I say deny overrides allow. Right? Remember, deny always overrides allow. If at a group level I give access, and if at a user level I deny, then that user will not have access to whatever I am denying. Right? So just keep that in mind. Okay. So now let's go forward. Now let's look at roles. Right. So while launching an instance, when I was launching an instance, there was a step here. Select AMI, and there was a step here, IAM role. If you guys remember, I said we'll talk about it later. All right. So to access, so what are we doing to access from my EC2 instance? We are putting in our access key and secret access key, right? But AWS says that is not a good practice. AWS says that's not a good practice. What, according to AWS, the good practices should always assign a role. You have to create a role and you have to assign a role. And one limitation here is once you create an instance, then you cannot assign a role or you cannot change a role. After you create an instance, there is no way you can assign a role or create a role, right? So before creating the instance itself, you have to decide what role you have to assign to that instance, right? Let's look at roles first, then probably it will all start making more sense. So let's create a new role. Create a new role. So what is the role that you want to associate with this, with the new instance? Roles are basically assigned to machines. Roles are basically assigned to machines. So let's look at it. Say from this EC2 instance, I want to do everything. Say EC2 admin. This is admin box. For me, this is my admin box. So once I log into this instance, I should be able to do anything, right? So the next step I'll say is, so what is the role type? What is the role you want to create? Right now what we are doing is we are looking at the EC2 role. So we'll select that. Then what is the access, right? And what is the access you want to give? I want to give administrative access. Next step, create role. Right now a role is created by name of EC2 admin. Now if I look at it, I don't have it, right? So if I do a refresh, now I have it here. Okay, I have EC2 admin here. So I'm going to select that, tag instance, security group, review and launch, and I'm going to use that. Now this instance is coming up. Take a new section and connect to it. This AWS tools you can install on Windows as well as any other Linux also. But with AWS AMI, those tools are pre-installed, right? But if you're going to choose any of your Linux or any of the Windows instances, you can definitely install all of these tools in those machines. So what we're going to do is we're going to select our SSH keys. Still coming up, I guess. So we'll quickly try to connect to this again. Okay, this instance is up. So let's try to connect to it. Now if I do EC2 at AWS EC2 describe hyphen instances, all you have to do is you have to specify a region. That's it. You don't have to enter the keys. I just have to specify the region. AWS configure. I don't have to enter anything here. All I have to do is I have to just specify the region to which I want to connect to. Right now, if I do a AWS EC2 describe instances, you guys notice this? I haven't entered any access key or secret access key, right? You have noticed the AWS configure. I've run this command. I haven't entered any access or secret access keys here. All I have entered was to which region I want to connect to. That's it. And after that, my AWS command is working. But we have to enter our access key and secret access key, right? We haven't entered it. So how is it working is, it is using the role that you have created. So it is using the role that I created for it. I have created a role and it is using that role. So AWS best practice is, if you want to access the AWS resource from an EC2 instance, always assign a role. Always go for a role rather than going for users and keys, right? Rather than creating a user and using those keys, the best practice is always to use the roles. Right? I hope you got how the rules work. Roles are also same, just like that, like what I've shown. You can assign inline policies and all of the stuff here. Okay, let's look at policies now. So if you look at the policies, we have already looked at these policies, right? We have already seen these policies once. So these are all the policies that are there. These are all the policies that are generated by AWS. You can create your own policy, right? If I look at the filter, I have AWS managed policies, I have custom policies, and I have no filter. No filter means display everything. If I want to create my own policy, right? Something here, anything here doesn't suit my requirement. I want to create a separate policy for me, right? Then I can say create policy. Okay, so now it shows you options. What do you want to do with your policy? Do you want to make changes to an existing AWS policy, existing AWS managed policy, or you want to use policy generator to generate a new policy, or you want to completely type a new policy, depending upon you. If I'm going to select this, right? So it's going to show you all the policies that are there already. All the policies that are there. These are all the policies that are there. So you can choose one of them, or you can choose any one of them. I want to go for the read-only one. So instead of me searching all over it, so what I'll do is I'll type as read. There should be a read-only policy here somewhere. So I'm going to select this, right? So this is the default read-only policy, right? I want to give read-only on everything except I want this user to look at everything, but I don't want to look at except say EC2. I don't want him to have any access to EC2. I can remove this. I can remove these two lines. Okay, so then I can name this policy as read-only access. I can give some name which makes some sense except EC2, right? I'm saying, I mean the name itself, I'm saying read-only access except EC2, right? Because I've removed EC2 access, right? If you want to remove something more and you want to have yourself a different name, you can do that. Let's say create policy. Now it has created a policy. Now in the filters, now if I look at customer managed policies, so this is the policy that I created. Now this policy I can attach it to users. Any user that you pick, attach a policy. Now if I look at customer managed policy, if this is the policy that I want to attach, I can attach this policy. Right? Now this has two policies. One is a policy that is generated by AWS managed policy. One is policy that I have generated. Okay. One is a policy that I have generated. So in this way, you can create your own policies. You can also use something called as simulator, right? Policy generator basically. We have already seen that. So you can also again look at it. What do you want to allow or deny? Which resource, right? What actions and the resource name. And if you want to add a condition, optional. This is not mandatory. Say I want to allow or I want to deny. Deny all. I want to allow. Say, for example. By default, everything is denied, right? You guys remember, by default, everything is denied. If I'm going to say this user as access, this policy will give access only on EC2. Okay. Now if I look at, now if I check all actions, I'm going to say star add statement. Now next step, right? It's going to create this policy. I'm going to say create policy. Now I have a, let's say, customer managed policies. I have this policy. I haven't renamed this. I should have renamed it, but I haven't renamed it. Now if I go into this user section, now for this user, I want to attach a policy. I want to remove these policies basically. Already there are a couple of policies, so I'll remove them. To remove those policies, simply click on detach policy, detach policy. These two policies are gone. I want to attach a policy that is generated by me, customer generated policies, and this is the policy that I want to attach. So the attached policy. Now if you look at show policy, what does it has? It has allow on EC2 for everything. So on EC2 he has full access, but no access on all other components. By default, everything is denied. The only thing that I allowed him is EC2. Now let's look at Now let's sign in as user one. Let's sign in as user one. Now if I go into EC2, I can do everything here. I can create an instance, I can do everything that I want. But if I go to CloudWatch, right, it says the IAM user does not have permissions to view metrics. It's not showing me anything here because for this user there are no permissions on IAM. So that is how your policies are going to work. Okay. Identity providers are for, say, if you want to use your say existing existing Active Directory in your office, right? If you have an Active Directory set up in your office and if you want to use that, then you're going to use something called as SAML. You're not going to do either of the things, and I'm just letting you know for your information. If you have an Active Directory set up in your account, and if you want to combine that with AWS, you're going to configure an identity provider like SAML, and then you have another identity provider called as OpenID Connect. Say for example, if you want to allow your Google account, right? If you want to allow your Google account to log into AWS, you can do that. So if you open Flipkart or Myntra or something like that, they always have an option to log in with your Facebook account or a Google account. You don't have to create your own account in Myntra or Flipkart or any of these shopping sites. You can use one of these accounts, your Google account or Facebook account, to log in, right? In a similar way, even your AWS can support that. But for that, you have to create something called as OpenID Connect, which is very complex, which you're not going to get into. But for your information, there is an option like that. Okay. Then there is something called as account settings. Okay. In account settings, what you can do is you can set something called as password policy, right? You don't want you want at least say 10 characters for the password, right? You want at least 10 characters for the password. You want at least one uppercase letter. You want at least one lowercase letter. You want a number, right? If you want to set all of these things, click on apply password policy, and the password policy is set. Next time when you try to change a password, this policy will come into effect. Right? Then you have something called as credentials report. If you click on this download report, it will basically simply download a report showing what all users you have, and when was the password changed, when was the password set, and all of this information. Does this have a password and all of this, right? All right, and if you look at your first screen here, this always shows you the best practices. Best practices always says that for your root access should never have your keys. Root access key should be removed, and your root account should be combined with the MFA device. Right? Always your root account should be combined with the MFA device. If I want to combine combine my email ID and with the MFA device, I can click this. Okay, if I'm going to do this, I can attach a MFA device. Right? You can also have something called as virtual MFA device. Right now, what we are talking about in this picture is the physical MFA device. But if you are using a smartphone, you have something called as Google Authenticator. Right? If you open your Google Authenticator, now if I'm going to do this, if I go to the next step, right? If I click on next step, you download your Google Authenticator and you do a QR scan. Right? If you have a smartphone, open Google Authenticator and do a QR code scan. Right? Then it's going to recognize your AWS account. Right? Then it's going to show you a authentication code. Enter 2 of those codes. Right? Then click on activate virtual MFA. Then your account will be will be attached to this MFA device. Now from next time on, whenever you want to log in, you have to enter those MFA device code plus your username and password. That is multi-factor authentication. There are two factors. One is your username, the next one is password, and the code on your MFA device. Right. Another thing is you have to create your individual IAM users. Nobody can share the same user account and password. And if you want to do any groups, you can do it and apply the password policy. These are the 4 or 5 security standards that you should follow always. Okay. Do you guys have any questions before we move on? Okay. We just have 20 minutes left. All right. So I'll stop here. I don't want to start anything new and I don't want to break in between. So what we're going to do is we're going to stop here for now. Today it was a bit short session, 20 minutes less than what we anticipated it for. If you guys don't have any questions, we can stop. We'll resume tomorrow. I'm going to unmute all of you guys. If you guys have any questions, you can speak up, or else I'll drop the call. Okay, I think there are no questions. So, all right, guys, I'll talk to you tomorrow. If you guys have any questions, if you people have any questions, you can email me or you can email Collabra as well. All right, talk to you guys tomorrow then. All right, before I drop off, any questions there? Okay, all right.